Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to today's episode of How You're Getting Fucked. I'm your host, Louis Rossman, and today we're going to be going over one of my favorite punching bags in the auto industry, Rev Up America. Rev Up America is a organization that likes to try and push back against right to repair legislation as often as they can in the automotive industry, and they come up with garbage like this. Modern cars carry sensitive data about you, your family, and your location. The Repair Act would hand that information over to insurers and third parties, exposing it to misuse, hackers, and even foreign adversaries. Rev Up America is fighting to protect your data, your safety, and America's security. And before we go over why this is bullshit, I think one of the best analogies for this is from this goose. Not duck, fuck this avoidant duck, fuck this duck, fuck him, stop asking me for grapes, suck it. We're talking about the goose. Never the duck, always the goose. The goose over here, this based goose, says, so you say right to repair would allow Chinese hackers to access my data, the data that you are collecting. Why the fuck were you collecting my data in the first place, motherfuckers? And that's a great way to look at this. Why does your car have all this personal data about you that could be given to insurers? And more importantly, was it the independent mechanics that were giving that data over to insurers, or was it the manufacturers of the vehicles? It was the manufacturers of the vehicles, now wasn't it? This group has done everything they can to make it more difficult for you to be able to fix your vehicle. They have all this propaganda that they post everywhere. And if you walk around Washington, D.C., it's very, very difficult to do so without seeing one of these trucks that they have rented, that they have plastering all this garbage propaganda that's sitting outside of congressional offices. It's sitting outside of where they lunch. It's sitting outside of where they know the people who may vote on this issue are going to be walking. They've been plastering this garbage everywhere. And there is a bill that I want to talk about that is going to be discussed either today or over the next few days that I can use your help on. There's a link I'm going to leave down below. It's from repairact.com. This comes from AutoCare, and it allows you to very easily send a letter to your congressional representative to say that you think that all of this is bullshit. And that's what I'm asking you to do today. If you believe that it is bullshit, that a company is going to try and scare you out of being able to have the tools necessary to be able to fix your car, or for an independent mechanic to be able to have easy access to those tools, then this is something that I would highly suggest that you speak out in favor of. If you take a look at the text of the bill, I like the way that they define things. So they talk about barriers to repair. The term barrier means a restriction that prohibits, makes more difficult, or tends to make more difficult the ability of a person to exercise rights under this act. And we're going to be going through this and going over some examples of why this matters shortly. So when you read many forums nowadays, you'll notice that cars are kind of like iPhones at this point. They're like MacBooks. They have a lot of the same annoying shit that makes it more difficult to repair for, in my opinion, not a very justifiable or good reason. So when you take a look at some of these forums, yes, on FCA Stellantis vehicles with SGW, only scan tools with an active auto-auth account have full functionality. That's 100% correct, and the yearly subscription fee for auto-auth isn't that big a deal. For $50 a year, you can use the 5 tools and use multiple devices. The problem is when you need to use a tool that's not on their approved list. Say you want to use something like Alpha OBD to make small customizations, Tailor BCM, you install LED bulbs here and there. That's when an SGW bypass comes in handy. My 2 cents, it's a stupid money grab that has no real benefit for the customer. It's an additional hassle meant to bring more business to dealers. In my case, it didn't work. I service my Mopars at home, but if you don't have the time to do the research, jump through the hoops and learn to do it yourself, you will go to the dealer for sure. Buying scan tools that are auto-auth approved is a decent option, but not needed in his opinion. There are a bunch of annoying things that you'll find on forums all over the place. I swapped transmissions and it cost me $380 at the dealer to get the newer transmission VIN coded. Only to take 20 minutes. I would have had to tow the car to another hour to the closest dealer. Really no choice. That's crazy for hooking up a cable and punching a few buttons. And there's a lot of issues that I have with the fact that a lot of what I've been talking about when it comes to just basic consumer electronics repair is starting to become commonplace in other areas where we were not used to seeing these types of restrictions before. When you look at some of this auto-auth stuff, this security barrier prevents external devices from accessing critical vehicle systems such as the ECU, restricts certain diagnostic functions unless specific conditions are met, reduces risks of hacking or tampering, particularly with wireless access. Do we need to go over all the times that a car manufacturer has had some insecure element in their systems that has nothing related to repair? Do I need to? Because I got a lot of them. I'll link it down below. There's a video I did on Section 1201 of the DMCA regarding automobiles where I was responding to Mark Humphrey from Alliance for Automotive Innovation, who was making the case that it should be illegal to be able to bypass digital locks in order to fix a vehicle that you fucking bought and paid for. I went over a lot of the bullshit and the fear-mongering in this video, and I highly suggest that you watch it if you're any more interested in this. But there are a number of different problems. I mean, if you look at just Volkswagen and Audi, they have something called component protection, which is going to electronically bind certain electronic control units like infotainment, instrument clusters, climate control modules, to a vehicle's VIN using Volkswagen's central Fazit database in Germany. Imagine replacing a control module and it not working until a server in Germany approves the control module after you're paying a subscription for something to be able to just make what's in your car work again when you've replaced the part. That's insane. That's the world that we currently live in. Stellantis doesn't let you clear certain fault codes in newer cars unless you pay them $50 a year for permission. And again, it's not even necessarily about the money. It's about the point. Some of you may wonder, why should I want any of this data on my vehicle to begin with? Why is it collecting data on me? Sometimes the data in your car is something that you would want to make available to an independent mechanic. If your car has a log on which sensor has failed or what's going on here or a temperature or anything like that, there are certain things that would be very useful to the dealer to be able to provide a better quote or a better idea of what it will cost and how long it will take to fix a vehicle before you actually make it to the dealer. But if the independent mechanic does not have access to that wireless data, even if you just say you want that independent mechanic to have access to it because you trust them, that means that you're not going to be able to get as good an idea of what is wrong with the car until you take it in, meaning the dealer is going to be able to offer a better experience than the independent mechanic, which means that there is going to be an uneven playing field there. And again, I find it very difficult to understand or sympathize with the people that are like, yeah, I think that's absolutely fine. That's okay. Why should the independent mechanic have it easier? Why should you be able to take the data from your car and give it to the independent mechanic that you're choosing to work with? And I find that insane. It's your car, which means it's your data, which means you should get to choose who has access to that data, and there should not be barriers in place to getting access to it. When we look at the text of this bill, and this is an older bill, but this is the type of text that you would expect from future bills here, the term barrier means a restriction that prohibits, makes more difficult, or tends to make more difficult the ability of a person to exercise rights under this act. The Commission shall review its authority under paragraph 1, not less frequently than every 3 years after the date of enactment of this act, to consider whether it is necessary to update such definitions under such authority to ensure that the standardized access platform is effective for motor vehicle owners and their designees. In conducting such reviews, the Commission shall request comments from aftermarket parts manufacturers, motor vehicle repair facilities, motor vehicle manufacturers, consumer rights organizations, automobile insurers, and others for the Commission to collect information on new emerging barriers and other issues relevant to the Commission's determination of whether to update such definitions. Not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this act and every 2 years thereafter, the Commission shall submit to the Committee on Energy and Commerce of House of Representatives and the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation of the Senate a report that includes a summary of the investigations conducted and orders issued under Section 6, including descriptions of unfair practices related to repair and data access restrictions, and a summary of best practices from stakeholders, actions the Commission is taking to adapt to changes and advances in motor vehicle technology to maintain competition in the motor vehicle aftermarket and to ensure that motor vehicle owners control over their vehicle-generated data, and any recommendations by the Commission for legislation that would improve the ability of the Commission and other relevant federal agencies to further protect consumers from unfair acts limiting competition in motor vehicle repair and strengthen their control over vehicle-generated data. And when you take a look at how they define barrier, they're defining barrier as anything that may make it more difficult. So makes more difficult or tends to make more difficult the ability of a person to exercise their rights to be able to repair what they bought and paid for. This act seeks to require an investigation into anything that makes it more difficult for you to access the data stored on your vehicle. And I think that's great. You should know what data is stored in your vehicle. You should be able to delete the data that's stored in your vehicle. You should be able to provide to an independent mechanic, if you so choose, the data stored in your vehicle to make it easier for them to be able to service your vehicle. When you take a look at a survey that was done by AutoCare, it makes me sad when they talk about how often not getting access to this data has resulted in a repair not being done. Half of independent repair shops report sending up to 5 vehicles per month to the dealer due to vehicle data restrictions. That's insane. That every single time you're sending somebody off to the dealer because it's something you can't do, I'm going to take a wild guess, based on my experience in this industry, that means that you are sending them off for a much more expensive repair than what it would have been through the independent mechanic if they were able to get access. If you don't want this organization and their stupid lying trucks to win, if you want the based goose to win instead of the lame duck, what I would suggest that you do is go to this website, fill out this form, and send a letter to your representatives. And if you don't like the letter as it's written, you can edit it and contact your representative yourself. At the end of the day, if there's anything that I've learned after doing this for about 13 years, the reason that this stuff just kind of falls to the wayside is not because of all this corruption and things that you think about, although that is a certain part of it. It's that most people don't put in the work. They don't put in the effort. They assume that somebody else's email, and they assume that somebody else is calling, and they assume that somebody else will care. And because of it, nothing gets done. But if all of you do something, something may get done. Look what happened with Bose. A lot of you emailed and called in after I did that video that did very well and had that article written. And what happened? What happened as a result of all of you deciding that you wanted to clean up your own corner of the world rather than just go, gah, and then do nothing about it? They changed course. They listened. You have power. You by yourself don't have a lot. As an individual, you don't. But when all of you together decide to do something rather than just sit there in your black-pilled misery, you actually get something done. And I'm proud to see that people on this channel are actually taking what I said when I did that video on the Clippy movement seriously. They're not just changing their profile picture. They're doing what they can to clean up their corner of the world. Keep doing it here. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. Be the goose, not the duck. No grapes, only lemonade. Your car, your data. No grapes.